everybody knows. But I was saying nothing out. It was a sound so very loud. But now I want to hear. I got something. It's keeping me warm. But down along the way to roll. Back home. Slowly down the hall.
The hunt for Netanyahu. Absolutely very correct. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Deal Media's number one late night show, World at War. I am your late night host, Dean Ryan, who is broadcasting to you tonight with a wonderful episode, wholesome episode called The Hunt for Netanyahu. And it's about damn time, don't you think? It is the international increased pressure as the leverage to find one of the greatest crime ministers, one of the masterminds behind 9/11, one of the most boldest, violent, Zionistic thief out there. If you could just attach many words. Yes, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's going to be on the run, if he's not on the run already, with his second in command, who's trying to turn on him. So this has a lot to do with the West, but particularly the United States. We're going to be getting into just that here tonight in the beginning of the second half, because you're going to want to know how that's going to affect us, as well as what UK and France are doing right now, as they're sending many, many missiles in troops now to Moscow, as the doomsday clock is ticking louder and louder and louder by the minute. The nuke scare that we told you was going to happen alongside the alien invasion scare. We are right there at that moment. Can you feel it? Isn't it great? Isn't it just wonderful to be part of such a wonderful display of affection worldwide? So we'll be touched upon all of that, plus some major real deal politics news, as Trump is saying au revoir, goodbye to the trans movement. And that's right, the transhumanists. We'll be getting into that. Rand Paul is, he's coming out of the mini retirement we thought he was taking. He's talking about the military coming to the streets. He has a contrarian opinion I think is very important to tackle. Plus, Department of Education, the bills are being drafted for them to go goodbye as well. Just a lot of devolution, as we saw coming. Plus, we'll be talking about the Christmas spirit has now work parties across the board in the wake of the election. For all the work Christmas parties seem to be getting canceled. Poor sports, people ask, or just sour grapes. So we have that, plus some messages from Putin and the Iran Supreme Leader, and some intel you don't want to miss, plus some real deal mystery. Yeah, we haven't done that in a while. The Menendez brothers we'll be talking about here tonight. We're broadcasting live on Facebook over there at the Real Dean Ryan travel page, as well as Dean Ryan TV on YouTube, The Ghetto, and Rumble. Yes, indeed. But let's get started with a few headlines from around the world and in your neck of the woods. Well, here we go. Some real deal headlines. Yes, there's a lot to tackle here tonight, as we're getting close to Thanksgiving, and with Thanksgiving, the holidays, well, comes major gridlock in the travel world, where they start beating their chest and say, no, we're the security theater managers around here, not you. Well, that's kind of what the TSA is saying here in the United States, as the busiest Thanksgiving ever is now upon us. How the TSA, who are just very courageous people, plan to handle all of us, the cattle. Once again, my favorite people in the world. Yes, the busiest day is just here, just as sure as the turkey will taste dry for many. Airports and highways are expected to be jam-packed, gridlocked during Thanksgiving week, a holiday period likely to end in another record day. Many air travel industry insiders are saying, well, the people responsible for keeping security lines, the boarding areas, and jetliners moving from the U.S., the Transportation Secretary and Airline Chiefs, TSA, or which stands for Thousands Sexually Assaulted, or swear they're prepared to handle all the crowds. Airline passengers might get lucky like they did last year, but they might have some new pat-down maneuvers to make sure that you're really, really safe. That's right. Well, drivers should get a slight break. Many have said on the gas prices. Nationwide average price for a gallon of gas in America right now is $3.06. Can you believe it? Down from $3.26 last year. If that's winning, then, well, we have to reassess. Well, the Transportation Security expects to screen, get this now, 18.3 million people at the U.S. airports. That'd be 6% more than during last year's events of the holidays. But they're saying they're ready. Now, here's a wonderful just quote. They're saying this will be the busiest Thanksgiving ever in terms. We're going to have some new pat-down maneuvers, some new staffing, just qualities that will make sure your entire family is safe. We just can't tell you what those procedures will be at this time, as we're experiencing the highest levels of travel in quite the year it is for that. So that is this reeks as something is about to happen once again to just give us another pandemic, one more page of a chapter before the inauguration. I can really sense that. I'm not sure what it is yet, but it has to do with gridlock. And where's Pete Buttigieg? Better yet, where's Kamala Harris during this time? We'll have to ask that question. Continuing now, well, get this now. Kind of a food-demic equation here is now Trump's mass deportation plan could keep food off Americans' plates, and farming industry warns. It never seems to end, does it? Well, that's just right. One expert has now said that the deportation plans could drive consumer grocery prices higher across the nation and higher than usual. That's right. Well, farm groups in the United States are warning that President-elect Donald Trump, that his mass deportation plan could upend the food supply, with nearly half of farm workers lacking legal status. Because that's exactly who, ICE would go after, the strawberry pickers. Anyways, continuing. Well, the U.S. farmer sector is now urging Trump to exempt agriculture workers from his mass deportation plan because the industry is dependent on the labor undocumented immigrants. Now, the deportation plan could slash the U.S. GDP now. This is just a guesstimation by 6.8%. Nearly half of the nation's 2 million farm workers are undocumented migrants and are now clenching their papers, and some are packing their bags. But that's how we see it here, as some real deal headlines as the holiday edition is now upon us. But we don't mind, do we? Well, that now leads us to some real deal politics. That's right, real deal politics, just the way I like it. Yes, let's get started. Well, you might have heard me say and tease that Trump is now saying goodbye to the let's just call it what it is, transhumanism. How they've psyoped an entire generation around the world. He's now saying no more transhumanist ways in sports, but this time also the military. Yes, Donald Trump to kick transgender troops out of U.S. military in a tranny surprise, but of the different kind. Absolutely. Well, an executive order now could be signed, they say, as early as the first day back in the White House, which could force 15,000 people out of their post. Absolutely. Well, as Donald Trump is planning to sign this executive order immediately, it would be the removal of all transgender members in the U.S. military defense forces, sources say. Now, the order can come on his first day back in the White House, January 20th. There are believed to be about 15,000 active service personnel who are transgender. That's right. They would be medically discharged, which would determine that they were unfit to serve. It would also lead to a ban on trans people joining the military. It would come at a time when almost all branches of the American Armed Forces are failing to meet recruitment targets. Now, Trump, who has railed against woke ideology, yes, he has. He really has. In practices, the military saying that some high-ranking officers are often more interested in diversity, equity, inclusion than planning to fight. Yeah. What a terrible concept. Gee, how are my nails? How about cock the gun? And wait a minute, wrong choice of words. Well, the ban is expected to be wider ranging than a similar order made during this first term. Trump has now prevented the trannies, people joining armed forces, but allowed those already serving to keep their jobs. So this is something a lot of people are very concerned about this. They're saying that the people are going to be forced out, but I mean, the way they frame it, it's like they're going to be held, gunpoint. I don't think so. I believe in trans rights, but they have the right to get out of our military because we know about the fact of the matter is there's no such thing as trans without big pharma. There you go. I said it and I'm proud of it. Well, let's get to some Trump updates. Speaking of Trump, because there's so much going on here, but a lot of appointees are coming. But before that, what's happened to Kamala Harris? Where's her big concession speech and stump speech? Where's all the money? Is she hiding because she owes like $1 billion to a bunch of shadowy people? Well, what does Lauryn Hill say about it?
Hawaii, while DNC staffers are just wondering what they're going to do. The vice president
has taken time off to go spend time with her family. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think she deserves some time to be with her family and to have some downtime. She has worked very hard over the last 4 years, and her taking a couple of days to be with her family, good for her. Good for her. Thanks, everybody.
To Hawaii, well,
can you be so insensitive? She has a family. Yes, she's hiding in a bunker, but that's where families are. This is the upside down world we're living in. We're even at a point now where classical liberals, established liberals, limousine liberals, network television, mainstream types, they can't even take anymore, and they're starting to turn on each other. In fact, Bill Maher had Neil Tyson deGrasse, the company man, the shill of all shills, took him to task about the transgender, just Biden policies, because it doesn't make sense, and they keep making excuses for that Kamala Harris person. Well, in fact, here, just check out what Bill Maher said.
I'm not for canceling anybody on either side.
Yeah.
So But here's what I think is the scandal.
Right.
This is in Scientific American.
Yeah.
Less than a year ago. Inequity between male and female athletes is a result not of inherent biological differences between the sexes, but of biases in how they are treated in sports. That's nuts. And it sure ain't scientific, and it's in Scientific American. And that's why the Democrats lost the election. It's true.
Bill, every 20 minutes on your platform, you come up with another reason why the Democrats lost. You already have the answer. They lost the election. So anything you say is why they did it.
First of all, you don't watch this show, so you don't know that. I know you don't, and it's okay. But you talk as if you do, and you fucking don't. And that's okay. Just don't bullshit me. That's the one thing people can't ever do on this show is bullshit me. And that's fine. But I don't say that. I have very good reasons. But engage with the idea here. What I'm asking is, Scientific American is saying, basically, that the reason why an NBA WNBA team can't beat the Lakers is because of societal bias.
What you're saying is not Scientific American says that. An editor for Scientific American says that, who no longer has the job. So don't indict a 170-year-old magazine because somebody...
Okay, this is called Scientific American, and they're printing something
because someone enters the cesspool that is social media and then participates in that exchange. So
why can't you
let's talk about science?
Why can't you just say this is not scientific and Scientific American should do better?
They're starting to turn, everybody. They're starting to turn. They're eating each other. The two-headed anaconda is hungry, asking what's for dinner. Moving on now, continuing. Now Donald Trump is now responding to, officially, as we can announce it, Jack Smith, prosecutor Jack Smith, the fictitious man of the comic book, just a wet dream of Robert Mueller, is now moving to dismiss all felony cases officially. The whisper campaign no more is now coming to, fruition, as now Donald Trump has now responded officially Monday to special counsel Jack Smith's move to dismiss 2 felony cases against him. Where's a quote? These cases, like all the other cases I've been forced to go through, are empty, lawless, and should have never been brought. It was a political hijacking, a low point in the history of the country that such a thing could have happened, yet a preserved against all odds and won Make America Great Again, Donald Trump says. Well, there you have it. Well, someone who may be just hiding the party hats just a little longer, well, Senator Rand Paul is now speaking and saying that he opposes Trump talk of using military in deportations. Yes, this is true. Yes, as now Rand Paul who is a principal libertarian coming from the Ron Paul protege. Well, now he's saying that he's voiced opposition on Sunday to the idea of using military to carry out mass deportations of people living in the country illegally after Trump signaled last week that he plans to do so. Notice he always signals something to get the reaction to then you get a perfect survey of where you want to go with it. Where's a quote? From Rand Paul, he says, you don't do it with the army because it's illegal. Paul said recently, he said that if they send the army to New York and you have 10,000 troops marching carrying semi-automatic weapons, I think it's a terrible image and I will oppose that. So there you have it. Unless you have enemy combatants, I must say, yeah, we have enemy combatants inside. And I'm going to tell you about what kind of enemy combatants towards the end of this segment here. But you're going to learn something very massive here tonight. Continuing. Well, now, H5N1 found in raw milk. Just what a coincidence. As Bobby was talking about raw milk now, now the bird flu is now found in raw milk, the same drink promoted by America's next health chief, Bobby Kennedy Jr. Just in the nick of time. You couldn't plan it better than they do. So now the attacks have begun, as now H1N1 is now found just in the milk that you're drinking. But what are they going to say next? That it's found in the teat milk of the babies, in the mommies? Where have we gone to? What just weird, just ozone we're going into? Well, the virus was detected, now they're saying, in the batch of raw milk of unpastured milk from Fresno-based brand Raw Farm, the largest producer of raw milk in California, via a sampling program run by the state health authorities. While retailers were told to put the product from their shelves, consumers have been urged to discard the milk. No human infections have been linked to this product. As of just recently, as of Friday now, 402 dairy herds in California had tested positive for the just very man-made bird flu, the largest outbreak in the U.S. since the virus started spreading among cattle in late last year. Now, it's worth noting at least 27 people have tested positive, and I'm sure they're using the same testing kits during the COVID era. Isn't that something? It's just unbelievable. Let me add this too. Is what is the danger in raw versus the dangers in factory? See, raw presents local farms as opposed to the other. Anyways, you get the picture there. Anyway, moving on now. While RFK Jr. is still in the news now he's promoting psychedelics for all. And I, for one, am quite thrilled secretly. Well, yes, RFK wants a psychedelic revolution, as you can plainly see, as he will cut prescription drugs and increase marijuana and psychedelic access. That's right. I can't believe living in a time they even say this to him, but Trump's health department pig now has expressed the distrust of pharmaceuticals and attack suppression of psychedelics. The almost new or almost confirmed public health chief now is now going to be carrying the new revolution in the way we think about drugs versus medicines. Kennedy, who was picked earlier this month, has repeatedly expressed distrust of everything that comes out of the FDA for its aggressive suppression of psychedelics. Recently on a podcast over there in the U.S., he said, quote, the sickest country in the world, blaming its healthcare system for devoting billions to the pills and the potions and the powders rather than on actually getting people healthy and building their immune systems. And let me tell you something. On a very personal level, as someone who suffered severely from depression like myself years and years and years ago, It was MDMA and cyberpsilin that saved my life. There's a lot of truth in what you're hearing here. And a little microdosing of cyberpsilin can save a lot of these people who are on the streets who have schizophrenia, who've been experimented on, abused by CPS. There's a lot of credibility into at least looking into these alternatives that we've been suppressed from ever knowing about. And that's the truth on that one. That is certainly the truth. So thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Bobby, for being an adult for a change. Speaking of adults, well, now South Dakota senators file bills to abolish the Department of Education, which is kind of what this whole new DOJ, what you're going to hear about, is running on. And all of these new appointees are talking about abolishing the greatest, just kind of a tunneling of communists into this country who came through our education systems. And that is the biggest offender of them, the Department of Education. Well, now South Dakota senators drafted a bill, as you heard, files a bill to abolish the Department of Education, finally. And as Trump has spoken about it prior, he wants to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. And one of its supporters in the U.S. Senate has now just filed a bill to make this happen. Yes, we have the lowest test scores in the world. We're just continually getting worse and worse with the youth and the education and the intellect, critical thinking, all downhill. Well, now U.S. Senator Mike Rounds over there in South Dakota recently filed this bill. It's called Returning Education to Our States Act. His bill would eliminate U.S. Department of Education and redistribute any critical federal programs to other departments, according to his recent release from his office. Now, the Department of Education, if you forgot about it, was created, sadly, in 1979. It was founded to collect data, advise schools on best practices. However, its role has since changed. And since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the USSR, well, we adopted all of those communistic practices and made our youth of today nothing but cubicle slaves, in my view. Where's a quote? It's been 45 years since the creation of this monstrosity. It has grown into an oversized bureaucracy with a budget that's 449% larger than it was when it started. This is coming from the senator, by the way. Despite the department spending $16,000 per student per year, standardized test scores have been dropping over the past 10 years, further displaying the department's ineffectiveness on the quality of education of all American students. Any grants or funding from the department are only given to states and educational institutions in exchange for adopting a one-size-fits-all standards put forth by the department. And there you go. Just another brick in the wall. Well, here's something, we talked about the Department of Government Efficiency being held and led by Elon Musk and Vivek Swamy. Just exactly what they're calling Doge. Well, not only that, Doge even has its own crypto now. Can you believe it? But there's a lot of emphasis on a lot of change, and people are ready for it. There's a lot of government pork barrel spending and waste, and it's just going to take just a little bit of effort to save a lot of money and a lot of lives. Well, here's just a little taste of what we have to look forward to here.
Wealthy entrepreneurs Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy view their Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as a crusade to trim the federal bureaucracy.
We are going to take aim at the overgrown fourth branch of government and finally restore self-governance in America again, where the people we elect to run the government once again become the ones who actually run the government, and in the process take care of massive cost overruns, massive federal spending.
DOGE promises recommendations that will cut costs and wasteful spending. Musk posted about a public report from the Government Accountability Office showing $247 billion of improper federal payments from 2022. Musk said it was just the tip of the iceberg.
Our federal budget is, $7 trillion trillion a year now. It's hard to believe there's not some money in there that's being wasted.
Former Florida Democratic Congressman Patrick Murphy is in the construction industry now. He sees opportunity with what Musk and Ramaswamy are trying to do by eliminating red tape and regulation and possibly harnessing new technology like AI.
Let's tap into that. Let's bring these big minds into government so we get more from less, and then we can spend our tax dollars on other things or not tax as much.
The two entrepreneurs have already floated mandating federal employees return to office work 5 days a week, something Ramaswamy predicts would cause 25% of the workforce to leave. DOJ wouldn't necessarily have the power to mandate that order, and unions would very likely fight back to try and keep their members' jobs secure.
I don't want to make predictions, but I would imagine we're going to see some attempts to really shake things up that ultimately end up in the Supreme Court.
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has already promised to create a DOJ subcommittee, chaired by Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
So the question is, who's going to put forth this new agenda of Donald Trump? And a lot of these appointees in the beginning were like, yes, but a lot of people are questioning some of these new appointees and the true integrity and intentions of them. There's a little montage of some of the new appointees that are coming out of the fray, and it's quite the contrast like we've never seen before. Very controversial. So here's the new Trump agenda and his Trump cadets that are going to put it and send it forth.
$450 million. What it does is it provides school security. It's going to ensure that every school in Florida is much safer, infrastructure, everything that we need to keep our schools safe. Okay. It's going to provide law enforcement officers for every 1,000 students, a school resource officer. And that was something that was lacking in our state, as well as mental health, which is huge. It has a gun violence restraining order in there. It raises the age of purchasing an assault rifle to 21, and it's banning bump stocks.
Okay, now that's a comprehensive
much more,
approach.
$450 million. What it does.
Hey guys, you'll be happy to know that the CDC has updated its guidelines. If you've been exposed to someone who tested positive for coronavirus and you are symptom-free after 10 days, then you are cleared to go back to work. If you are symptom-free for 7 days with a negative COVID test, then you're also free to go back to work. But the baseline remains that you should still monitor your symptoms, wear your mask, and practice social distancing.
The greatest perpetrator of misinformation during the pandemic has been the United States government. Misinformation that COVID was spread through surface transmission, that vaccinated immunity was far greater than natural immunity, that masks were effective. Now we have the definitive Cochrane review. What do you do with that review? Cochrane is the most authoritative evidence body in all of medicine and has been for decades. Do you just ignore it, not talk about it? That myocarditis was more common after the infection than the vaccine. Not true. It's 4 to 28 times more common after the vaccine. That young people benefit from a booster. Misinformation. Our two top experts on vaccines quit the FDA in protest over this particular issue, pushing boosters in young, healthy people. The data was never there. That's why the CDC never disclosed hospitalization rates among boosted Americans under age 50. The vaccine mandates would increase vaccination rates. The George Mason University study shows it didn't. It did one thing. It created never vaxxers who are now not getting the childhood vaccines they need to get. Over and over again, we've seen something that goes far beyond using your best judgment with the information at hand. We've seen something which is unforgivable, and that is the weaponization of medical research itself. The CDC putting out their own shoddy studies, like their own study on natural immunity, looking at one state for 2 months, when they had data for years on all 50 states. Why did they only report that one sliver of data? Why did they salami slice the giant database? Because it gave them the result they wanted. Same with masking study. Well, the data has now caught up in giant systematic reviews, and the public health officials were intellectually dishonest. They lied to the American.
They lied big time. It's all coming out. It's all coming out. There's so much coming out that the Senate, very complicated. They had to put Mitch McConnell in a very powerful position that would give them insurance to remove anybody of the Trump agenda appointee. And in doing so, this guy who's supposed to, it's totally brain dead now, totally MK Ultra. Well, it happened again. Mr. Blueberry Hands, America's Favorite Turtle, is I can't even explain this, but he was going to make a statement about his new role, and then somebody said the magic word, and Mitch McConnell became a catatonic turtle that we know him to be. There's a little clip of this new man who's preventing our just living, once again, getting in the way.
Yeah, straight up.
Wild stuff. Wild stuff. This is the guy who's going to be the head of the Senate committee. Just incredible. The just routes they're going to prevent this rejuvenation, this ignition of sovereignty is just next level. I want to show you something here. We're going to be getting into before we go to break here. We're going to be getting into this now hunt, this international hunt for Netanyahu. And a lot of people are coming out, like this Wednesday, I believe. We even have a victim who is now speaking about the horrors of the trafficking she experienced by Pierre Trudeau, the pretend TV dad, the pretend father of Justin Trudeau, and how he was part of an elite. That's just incredible. There's just so much stuff. And it's all coming out. So Zelensky's on. He's now being targeted for international arrest secretly. And Netanyahu in his second in command. But you would think that hearing that, the people of these countries, whether it's Ukraine, but mostly Israel, would almost rise to the occasion and dump and turn in this guy who has caused nothing but wreaked havoc and damage and war for all this time. You would think that would be the case. But I want to show you a clip here. A friend of mine named Abby Martin did a wonderful films and over the time. She used to be on Russia Today, but she's now examining kind of the mentality of the average Israeli and some of the people who are pushing back and what that looks like in Israel. As we peek through the Israeli curtain, and Abby Martin takes us on a journey of what really it means to be anti-Zionist as a Jew in Israel. It's quite stunning. Check this out. It's pretty wild.
Based in Haifa. Why don't you walk us through what happened to you and other activists when you tried to organize a screening of our film, Gaza Fights for Freedom?
So we printed posters for the events, and they were hung, like they were across the city. I think it was 1 day, 2 days after the posters were spread across the city that harassment began to arrive to one of the spokespeople that were supposed to be in the event. But she began to get these weird phone calls from the police and weird phone calls from citizens that some of them are known to be linked to various right-wing organizations that are known to hunt down and prosecute activists. And but we managed to keep things pretty calm until Saturday, 1 day before the planned screening, that I began to receive phone calls from my parents. Even before I spoke to them, I knew that the police came to their house. I knew that they raided their house because they already did that. And I can't say that I didn't expect that to happen.
So I'm going to stop it there. So this is more of a glimpse of how people who go against the grain are treated in this apartheid over there. Because there's a minute amount of people that are pushing back on this. and they get treated like second-class citizens. But how marginalized, you have to ask yourself, are these people? Well, you're going to learn here, this little short clip. She's literally, from her assessment now, someone who lives there, 0.01% of the people that live there think like her, talk like us, and they are being hunted down, kind of like Netanyahu is internationally at the moment. Check this out.
How marginalized is anti-Zionism within 48? Because it seems like, liberal Zionism is obviously much more palatable, but to be anti-Zionist and reject Zionism fundamentally must be a very tough ideology to embrace, to position yourself as, and it must be very hard to organize under that banner, Gaia.
You're alone most of your time with your thoughts, or maybe physically, because you can't find other people that think like you, and you don't want to be friends with Zionists, because all of the Zionist friends that you made along the years turned out to be genocidal, and so you're alone. It's a very lonely position here to be anti-Zionists. We're alone in so much hatred and bigotry, and we need this community to not lose our senses that everyone around us are completely genocidal maniacs. Everyone around you. And I don't mean it, no, metaphorically. It's not metaphorically, it's literally everybody. It will be your family, it will be your teachers, it will be your colleagues, everyone around you. So you're alone. Even if we will gather all of those anti-Zionists together from Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Haifa or whatever, it will not be more than, 500. We're alone here.
She is alone. Can you imagine that? Now, we always hear about how bad North Korea is if you don't praise the dear leader. How's that any different than what a small minority within a minority are having to endure and are facing complete eradication? I mean, this is the just excessive amount of propaganda that was being placed upon, well, the Germans and many people of the World War II era. And here we are again. So it's something to think about. It's a state of mind. And if you think about it, too, there was actually more anti-Iraqi war activists, 20 years ago than probably they're allowed to be in Israel who are against this war. It goes to show, if you don't flex your First Amendment right, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. So that is something to think about. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we're going to get into the hunt of Netanyahu. Plus, we're going to check in to see what UK and France are doing now with Moscow. It's just unbelievable stuff. And then we have a real deal mystery with the Menendez brothers, as this whole thing stinks to high heaven and has to be reexamined. There's more than meets the eye. Who really was their dad? Who was he connected to? And it's what a wild story. So anyways, don't go anywhere. You're watching Real Deal Media's #1 late night show here, World at War. We'll be back after this quick message. Stand by. All right, here's another one, and I'm not even telling Sean what this is. Let's see how he interprets it for the layman's.
If a man could be two places at one time, Will I be with you tomorrow and today, beside you, all the way? If the world should stop revolving, spinning slowly, down to die, I'd spend the end with you.
Sean, there's nothing more romantic, don't you think, than Telly Savalas, but specifically those type of words to romance a girl, right? Isn't this what women want to hear while a man smokes a cigarette?
Hopefully.
Hopefully, become a night owl. RealDealMedia.tv/membership. RealDealMedia.tv/membership. Become a night owl. Watch our Sunday brunches. Behind the scenes, we have a lot of holiday festivities coming up, and hopefully, Sean Gregorian will be there to greet all of you with a wonderful, just a festive cheer. You know, it's so interesting. Some of these things they just come out the more you get to know people. I just learned, if you haven't seen it, I don't have that picture on me, but the infamous picture, I should say, the famous picture of a young Sean totally manhandling a dog while his grandma's playing a crossword puzzle. That's going to be on our new Christmas collection coming very, very soon. We're going to talk about that. What a mischievous boy. He used to put coins in his mouth. What is wrong? And now we know. It explains a lot. All the mischief. Jeez, what is wrong with him, I ask. Anyways, also, big thank you to everybody who's contributed to Real Deal Go. Help keep these broadcasts going. Go to givesendgo.com. Real Deal Go. Because your purchase helps fuel this operation. Pennies are money too, especially the ones in your mouth, as we just figured out. You don't forget it. Anyways, we have a long way to go and a short time to get there. We have some announcements to make. I'll be making tomorrow night as we have the Thanksgiving break here coming up on Thursday, but we'll have some festivities for our members. You don't want to miss it. Anyways, let's now slide on over to our Real Deal International, as I'm still Dean Ryan, who is cruising with you to midnight. But I'm ready to take the Concorde overseas now and take us to the promised land as we save Europe one communist at a time, shall we? Yes. Real Deal International. Well, here it is. Let's just get right into it now as we talk about the ICC arrest warrants that have been issued in the past 72 hours. Everybody knows about this. Absolutely, as arrest warrants have been issued for Netanyahu, his second-in-command Gallant, and Hamas commander over alleged war crimes. Well, judges over there at the International Criminal Court have issued these arrest warrants just recently for the prime minister and his former defense minister, as well as a military commander of Hamas. Well, statement said in the pretrial chamber it had rejected Israel's challenges to the court's jurisdiction, issued warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. A warrant was also issued for Mohammed Def of Hamas, but apparently he didn't hear it, Mr. Def. Although Israel has said he was killed in an airstrike in Gaza in July. Well, the judges said that there were reasonable grounds now for the three men bore for, quote, criminal responsibility for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity during the war between Israel and Hamas, which to my account is still happening. Well, both Israel and Hamas have rejected the allegations. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu condemned ICC's decision as, quote, yes, you guessed it, anti-Semitic. Well, Hamas said the warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant had set an important historical precedent. Yes, it has. The impact of these warrants will, in part, depend on whether the ICC's 124 member states, which do not include, mind you, Israel or its main ally, the United States, Well, it's going to come down to whether it will be enforced. Now, the White House said that the U.S. rejected the ICC decision. Of course they would, because they're an extension. However, several European countries have said they respect the decisions of the court. This is just getting brutal, but what are some of these charges, I've often asked myself, because I can think of a few right offhand. Well, in May, one of the head prosecutors over there at the International Criminal Court, Mr. Khan, first name Karim, sought warrants for Netanyahu, Gallant, and the other guy. But the other guy's dead, so it really doesn't matter. But he believes that the case against them for the October 7th, 2023 attack, when Hamas gunmen allegedly attacked the southern Israel, killing about 1,200 people and taking 251 others as hostage. Well, they're saying that Israel's response to the allowed self-inflicted wound, orchestrated by Netanyahu and produced by Gallant, well, they're saying their launch of the military campaign to eliminate Hamas, during which at least 44,000 people have been killed in Gaza, according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry, or what's left of it in this case. Well, the prosecution of the ICC, the chamber found responsible grounds to believe that he himself, Netanyahu, is responsible for the crimes against humanity of murder, extermination, torture, rape, and other forms of sexual violence, as well as war crimes of murder, cruel treatment, torture, taking hostages, outrages upon personal dignity, and rape, and other form of sexual violence as well against the indigenous people of the area. Now, a lot of skeptics are saying, will Netanyahu be arrested? Well, if you ask Trudeau, who's currently at a Taylor Swift concert, he might say, yes, give you a wristband. But in this case, despite the warrants, Netanyahu and the other guy, Gallant, do not face an immediate threat of prosecution, although it can make it difficult for them to travel abroad. Technically, if either of them set foot on a ICC member state, anybody that belongs to the International Criminal Court, well, they may be arrested and handed over to the court at once. Netanyahu's most recent overseas trip was July, this past July, to the United States, which is not a member. But last year, he visited several other countries, including the United Kingdom, which is. Now, when asked by journalists if Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to the United Kingdom, well, the government spokesman replied, quote, "We're not getting into hypotheticals." What a great guy. We don't even know who that was. It was believed a domestic legal process would be required in the UK to determine whether to endorse the warrant or not. Well, it's also worth noting, two other countries, Italy and Netherlands, have said they would openly arrest Netanyahu and any other men on their territory. Several other European countries promised to comply with ICC's rules without specifying exactly what that would be. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted over alleged war crimes in Ukraine, received a warm welcome, and was not arrested during an official visit to neighboring Mongolia recently, who is also an ICC member. South Africa and other another ICC member, also failed to arrest then Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir when he visited just years ago. Now in the U.S., incoming Senate Republican leader John Thune, a total war hawk and neocon, urged the Senate to pass a bill that has already passed the House of Representatives, under which the U.S. would impose sanctions on people engaged in any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, prosecute any protected person in the United States and its allies. This is incredible. It's so incredible that Netanyahu had to take time from his CGI day and his AI coffee, to release a message of his disdain for all allegations. Well, it's just to be fair. Well, here he is. And deniability is not just a river near the Ganges. Here it is.
The democratically elected prime minister of the state of Israel and Israel's former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, of deliberately targeting civilians. This when we do everything in our power to avoid civilian casualties. We issue millions of text messages, phone calls, leaflets to the citizens of Gaza to get them out of harm's way, while the Hamas terrorists do everything in their power to keep them in harm's way, including shooting them, using them as human shields. The court in The Hague accuses us of a deliberate policy of starvation. This when we've supplied Gaza with 700,000 tons of food to feed the people of Gaza. That's 3,200 calories for every man, woman, and child in Gaza. And these supplies are routinely looted by Hamas terrorists who deprive their people of much needed food.
What a humanitarian. He's such a humanitarian. It's always the same thing. They're using these people as shields. Although we tell people to go hide in this hospital, we drop a bomb on them when they get there. Does everybody understand? This is the guy who literally said it twice. I'll tell you about the second time, but the first time recently, or the second time rather, this is a guy who literally said, if anything happens to Donald Trump, Iran is behind it. And if America doesn't go to war with Iran after this assassination, they are cowards. This is the same guy that just said that. How suspect, nothing to see there. But in case you forgot, well, 25 years ago almost, something called 9/11 happened. The dancing Israelis, but there was also somebody who was gallivanting all over cable television with the same sentiment before, in the lead up to September 11, 2001, just to refresh your memory. Well, check this out here. I can't even, just right here.
Netanyahu said in a book in the 1990s that if we don't see the threat of militant Islam, then pretty soon militant Islam will bring down the World Trade Center.
The West really doesn't understand militant Islam. So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center.
Nice prediction there. Just a bit of psychic, was he? Like Israel did 9/11. It's got Israeli fingerprints all over it. And with any of that sort of stuff, you just got to say, Q bono, who benefits? And the only people who benefited from 9/11 is Israel, and even Benjamin Netanyahu said that as well. So the one thing we are benefiting from at the moment is the attack on the World Trade Center.
Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq."
I mean, they do these false flag attacks all the time. How much evidence do people need? And what would be the benefit for the Arab world blowing up Twin Towers? I mean, how have they benefited from this? Have a look at Iraq. Have a look at what we've done to the Arab world since that event happened. And look what Israel has got from that event happening. And ask yourself, who benefits?
Thank you. That's Australia's Max Egan, a good friend of mine, but he raises the important questions, the tough questions, the very, very downtrodden, hateful questions as branded by the powers that be. These are the things we have to ask ourselves. Who benefits? Because once you start doing the math on it, it doesn't add up. If I tell you tomorrow that, or today rather, you should buy fire insurance just in case there's fires in your neighborhood, and then you have a fire tomorrow and your house burns down, wouldn't I be arrested and questioned? At least with a critical eye, I think the answer is yes, 150%. Now that's going to bring us now to France and the UK. Let's get into it now, as many moving parts are now underway. As now, France and UK are now deploying troops to Moscow. Yes, it is. Which feels like just yesterday, although 2 years ago when UK just said, well, our GDP for the military defense budget, it should go up just in case there's war. Not that we would know, but you never know what happens. Rainy days. Well, we know how this one ends. Well, that's right. UK and France in talks to deploy troops to Ukraine over fears of U.S. removing support. So yeah, they want them to march into Moscow. Yes, they're just in talks to deploy troops just in case. It's always, it's always a Band-Aid that, you just never know when you need it. As now London and Paris want to create a, quote, core of allies in Europe. As fears intensify that President-elect Donald Trump could withdraw military support for Ukraine. That's right. Britain and France are just now in the talks. They're just putting their finger in there and saying which way is it going to go, and they're sending troops to Ukraine to deter Vladimir Putin, but yes, send them into Moscow. Yes, they want to create the core of allies, but British troops could be among European allies deployed to deter the Kremlin, as they could train Ukrainian forces too, who are just mentally retarded, literally, not even jokingly, similarly to how they did before the Moscow ordered full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Well, a British military source told French newspaper Le Monde, saying, quote, discussions are underway between the UK and France regarding defense cooperation, particularly with the aim of creating the core of allies in Europe, because we need that core, because we have no one else, focused on Ukraine and the broader European security. Now, the Estonian Foreign Minister, Margus Teškna, told the Financial Times last week that, quote, if we're talking about any real security guarantees, it means that there will be a just peace treaty. Just peace. Just peace. That's all we need. Furthermore, he said, quote, then we're talking about NATO membership, but without the U.S., it is impossible. And then we're talking about any form in the meaning of boots on the ground. Now, it's also alleged that Donald Trump is alleged to have told his team European armies should patrol a 800-mile stretch of the eastern Ukraine to end the war. Now, many across the continent, once again, have fear that Trump will put a halt to American military aid. The CIA is essing bricks in their drawers, but so are the deep state and all the bureaucrats and the henchmen who need a war to profit and a war to stop the inauguration of Donald Trump come January 20th. Isn't that something? Well, here's something out of the old textbook of, say what? They still have supreme leaders? Yes, they do. Iran's supreme leader calls for execution of Netanyahu. Yes, he does. Just in the nick of time for Christmas. This is just something incredible here. Netanyahu should be executed, says Iran's supreme leader. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says International Criminal Court arrest warrant for the crime minister. Well, it's not enough. We need more. Iran's supreme leader has called for this in the wake of the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for the Israeli minister. But nobody is brave enough to do it. And how would that look like? Because I heard hemp makes a great rope. But that's just me. But continue on that. I actually have a list now. I'm going to show you and share with you a list of the countries that are going to be complying, because we're talking 124 countries here. 124 countries. I just gave you a taste of it before. We're going to ask the Ayatollah to remain in the bullpen here for a minute. Here's that list here. We're going to go over it together and just see how realistic this is, as I'm a world traveler myself, and so is Netanyahu, but he might not be anymore. Here's the full list of the countries who are going to participate in the Netanyahu, or to catch a Netanyahu event. Here it is. Check this out. Well, the first one on the list here is, no surprise, Italy. Yeah, we would have to arrest him, she said. The Netherlands Foreign Minister Casper declared the Netherlands implements the Rome Statute 100%. Spain Foreign Ministry stated that respects the ICC's decision, will comply. Switzerland, who usually is in the middle ground, well, they actually have an opinion in this era. Well, it says the federal office says that they're going to abide to it. Lithuania Foreign Minister confirmed he would execute the plan. Now here's Canada. The Horde of Havana said that his government will abide by the rules and regulations of the ICC. It's real important to, well, who cares? Ireland says they'll do the same. Absolutely, might. Wrong country. We support international courts. We apply the war in South Africa in the same significant step towards justice for crimes against humanity and war crimes in Palestine. Well, and I'm sure the list is only growing, as the list of who's naughty or nice, well, it involves execution, doesn't it? And that is some real deal international. Well, now that's going to bring us to the talk of the town in Los Angeles. Yes, it is a cold case, mystery, or is it? Let's go to real deal mystery, shall we? Real deal mystery. Well, here is something that I have not even focused on. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about this, and I remember being very, very small, a little boy, hearing about the Menendez brothers. But this time, there's a lot of focus on their case. There's a lot of implications. But now something else has happened as the saga of the Menendez bros, who are looking a little different than older these days. Well, there's a new wave of justice that's swinging. They're saying is now they've been denied parole. Well, I just lost the whole damn story. Oh my God! And they lost their chance of parole by any means necessary. They lose their chance to be released by Christmas as a bid hit with a legal blow days before the new district attorney is to take over there in California. That is. Court comes after the news broke of Lyle's 21-year-old British lover. That's right. They have British lovers that sneak into prison these days. Well, a judge has set the resentencing hearing for Lyle and Eric Menendez, whose fates will now be determined after the 2025 ball drops over there in New York. The notorious brothers have been jailed since 1989. Double murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty. And interesting words. Kitty were appeared virtually in a court on Monday as the judge scheduled their resentencing hearing for January 2025. Now, Lyle and Eric's resentencing hearing is not the only thing to be rescheduled. There's now new interest into just exactly who Jose and Kitty are. In my own research, I can share it with you that there's new evidence that aims to prove that the brothers' accounts of being sexually abused, assaulted by the hands of their father, which were argued in court years ago, which this is before Pizzagate. Well, the case can be made now that they were doing it to save their lives. The high-profile status hearing happening in Los Angeles has brought out a lot of people out of the woodworks to say we stand together. That's right. In fact, even Eric, who's behind bars, somehow, some way has a daughter who spoke out about the hearing, saying that the outcome is one set forward in securing freedom for her father. Here's another quote. I'd like to provide an update that we are 110% behind the release of our loved ones here, in this case, her father. Now, let me just, before I get in the whirlwind romance of the British lover, in some of the research I've done, the father has connections to Cuba and the CIA, and this thing of the satanic ritual abuse is just the tip of the iceberg. Just the tip of the iceberg. And I think there's a reason they don't want this case to be tried. They don't want this to all come out now, because in a very alert society, you're going to find out that all these CIA-connected defense contractors, whether it's Jose Menendez or it's Jean Benet's father, John Ramsey, who's now coming out again saying he wants a DNA test of the killer. Well, you might be surprised to find out when it's his DNA or 5 other friends. But this case here, this could be the key. This could be the key locket to open up the Pandora's box to show that the most wealthy families, the most put together families, the cookie cutter families are actually the most satanic, ritualistic abusers on a high-level society platform. And that's why this case, if it's allowed to go through and they're allowed to tell their story unfettered, unfiltered, it will change the way we look at some of these cases. And that's what they don't want out. And district attorneys, historically, criminals themselves, they never allow these things to happen. So we're going to follow this. In fact, we have a big special planned on that for a big lounge episode. You're going to see from the inception of that case to where we are today, and you're going to learn some things in a deep dive into the Menendez brothers. That's just a little update on that. We're going to look for some questions, comments, concerns. But before we do, here's something that I noticed too. Somebody told me this. This is now, 'tis the season to do the Christmas work parties. We certainly do that on air, but that's a little different. But now there's a new trend or lack thereof that is now coming to the front of things, as now Christmas parties seem to be getting canceled. Yes, the death of mistletoe, work parties ditch Christmas traditions over abuse fears, but also in the wake of the election 2024. Makes no sense to me, but I'm willing to listen just a little longer. Well, they're saying goodbye to work parties. It's a thing of the past. Just when you thought they were just ditching the word Christmas, well, guess again, because now kissing under the mistletoe at a Christmas party is a dying out cause, as workers are fear of being accused of abuse for the mistletoe, but also it is offensive. Christmas is a celebration, they're saying, of, yes, we know the satanic stuff and the pagans, but it's also showing that it's racist and it's non-inclusive, and we can't have that in a woke society at work. So if you're at a Christmas party, consider it, it could very well be the last Christmas. Indeed, sad to say. But not here. We're going to be doing quite the opposite of that. Okay. Here we have people who are coming along here. Yes, I'm shadow banned on Facebook. You might see the replays of these. They don't show the lives anymore. They hide them. I see a lot of those comments out here. Liz Marchand says, I can see the comment. Thank you very much. Egyptian princess said, I feel her pain in regards to Israel. Yes, very, very pulling the heartstrings on that one. Pulling the heartstrings. We go to Rumble here. We also have security is tight at Art. Okay, thank you, Rebel Mama. It's a ritualistic winter solstice. We know. Yes, we know about that. We know all that. Hammer Time said the old boy got chased out of Australia. If you're talking about Max Egan, yeah. Then he went to somewhere. Well, I won't say where he went, but he's gone. Yeah, he can't go back to Australia. He can't go back. Anyways, well, that brings us to the one, the only. Final thoughts. Well, tonight's episode, the hunt for Netanyahu, is really the reignition of taking back our countries and really shoving into the military-industrial complex, no matter which state line it derives from, no matter which ethno-state and country it belongs to. It's about taking our power back. And I feel really, really bad for the minute, small minority within a minority of people in Israel that think, like myself and many others, and see the atrocities happening, see the genocidal state of mind and behaviors, and are disgusted by it, but are surrounded by it. And I can't even imagine. So I feel for those people. And I feel for the people that have been hoodwinked by Zionism in, more importantly, Christian Zionism. As we learn more and more about these archaic ideologies, we have more of the ample amount of opportunity to put something in the past where it belongs. Right next to the old days of lobotomies, right next to the old days of punishments in the UK internment camps where they put you on something called a Whopper. Yeah, that's what you go study what a Whopper is. These are all archaic. Dare I say, like chemotherapy. That's just me. So my final thought is just that. I think about the true, and this is what makes America great as a republic, is the protection of that minority of people whose voice is so important. And they're using it before they lose it. So I feel for those people. Anyways, some quick show notes. I'll be back tomorrow night. We may have a special Wednesday as we go into the Thanksgiving holiday, where we have the best of for all of the general population out there that you'll enjoy. So that will be true. Tomorrow night, I'll be with Jim Fetzer. We'll be back for World at War. And meanwhile, for Jim, who you'll see tomorrow night, I'm Dean Ryan saying thank you for sharing a bit of your night. Until next time, always remember to stay tuned and stay awake. Good night, everybody. I ain't got to
she belonged there. Said she could live without me no more. Listen to me, sir. Can't you see I got my bills on? Said she could live without me no more. Listen to me, sir. Can't you see I got my bills on? Anyway,